This famous Chinese dictionary contains 46,128 character entries, and they are not in alphabetical order. Tell me, how would you find a specific word in it? Baffling. At least it was to me on the day that, as I've mentioned before, Granddad gifted me my first Chinese dictionary. But slowly, what started out as an intimidating new process became a familiar chore. Must be quadruply so for native users, for whom this is just a humdrum staple of modern Chinese thought. But since what's now routine was once innovative, here's a concise history of how these dictionaries work, and how their authors developed a bundle of clever techniques just to be able to allow you to look up one character you don't know. Our story starts in the shadow of a legend, of once upon a time when Zhang Jie invented the characters. One version goes inspired by animal tracks. But whatever his intentions, already in the days of Old Chinese, the classics were aging, and the number and variety of characters daunted readers. Two kinds of books began to be written to curb the confusion. The earliest dictionaries. Early dictionaries weren't dictionaries at all, not meant to be references for lovers of words sitting on shelves. Instead, this first one is a teaching aid for interpreting the words in the classics. It's called Ya, the Ready Guide, and it classifies words into topics across 19 chapters based on their meanings. Without already knowing what our character means, we can't look it up this way. So instead, let's browse the chapter names, like explaining music, explaining mountains, or this one's funny, it almost means explaining. A simple example entry from that chapter tells us that in this phrase, not lose means not forget. Note the structure here. A means B, or actually A, B. Here's another example that caught my eye. Now, I don't know this word, or character. In classical Chinese, largely one word is one character. I'll jot this one down. The entry says it means eating, which actually gives me a hint about both the pronunciation and the meaning of a character. I don't know, but back to that later. The most common Old Chinese character guides were training manuals for school children. The earliest, historian Zhou's primer, has since been lost. However, fragments of a work in its footsteps have been unearthed. It's based around short lines organized into chapters where each chapter rhymes, with a single rhyme every other line. This turns reciting and memorizing characters into something playful for students. This guide also takes the step of grouping characters with similar visual elements together, like open, close, and door, and at times even gives sounds-like pronunciations. And these are two strategies, the sounds and the visuals, that other references will elaborate on soon enough. These kinds of rhyming primers must have been popular. Manuscripts are found across China, including teachers' editions and workbooks where students only copied the easy chapters. In the early part of the Han Dynasty, people are learning from the particularly witty Instant Primer. It opens by instructing students quickly learn all these lists of characters so you won't mix them up. If you put hard effort into it, you'll be surprised by the results. Follow the guidelines for each chapter. Millennia-old advice, laughing at us across the ages. And still Chinese learners everywhere wince as it pushes on an all-too-familiar learner pain point of remembering the characters in the first place. Actually, wait, there's at least one more early reference I want to mention. Its short name is Fangyan. Fangyan is the very word used for dialects or language varieties. Its 15 volumes, 13 still around today, survey words from 14 regions. And I read officials were sent out every 8th lunar month to collect folk songs and sayings for it. Take this entry. These 4 characters all mean hurt. The first one is if someone's sad and can't stop crying. The second if someone's sad and not crying. And the rest is about regional dialects. Sad is one character in Chu, but closer to Korea, when children cry and don't stop, it's another, while elsewhere, you get the idea. And that brings us to nearly exactly 2,000 years ago. Oh, and this timeline I put together last time, you don't need to read Chinese here today. I'm bringing it in to track relatively where I am in the last 3,000 years, top to bottom, with historical eras on one side and linguistic periods, old, middle, modern, contemporary on the left side. So, at this point, 2,000 years ago, we have a ready guide, a primer, and dialects in front of us. How would you look up a character you don't know? You might already need its meaning or its rhythm and rhyme, and even then you'll be rummaging around quite a bit. Cumbersome. Hence, one of my sources says we're not at full dictionaries yet. What we've met are part vocab lists, part textbooks, laying a base for what's next. In the later Han Dynasty, I'm excited that for some of you out there, I get to be the first to show you this. The 说文解字 takes a big step toward, as the title states, explaining and analyzing characters. The author organizes characters into 540 bu, sections. Anyone who has studied characters has heard of radicals. When Chinese, the term is actually section headers. And section in that term was coined to refer to which section of which volume the character's in this work. Now I'm going to do the thing where I treat us like we already know a thing, but bring you up to speed if you happen not to. So you know how characters have components? And how each component is either semantic, representing meaning, or phonetic, representing sound? Well, the author indexes every character based on one of those components, typically a meaning component. Let's look up this character. It's going to be indexed under the radical earth. Which volume is the earth section in? Well, travel across the list of radicals, sections, to see it's in volume 14. Okay, pull out volume 14. A note about entry order as we open it. We're back to semantics. Each section's organized by meaning. Good words are put before bad, physical before abstract, natural before artificial, bigger before smaller. It takes me a bit to find our entry, but when I get there it says it means flat land, and its components are land and flat. And it adds sounds like flat, ping. One note here, the 说文 uses a few markers to indicate pronunciation. This was a basic one, just means sounds, but a special one you'll see in some entries is 读弱, literally read as, for trickier old pronunciations. While this lexicographic star deserves attention, let's not neglect ongoing work it overshadowed. Explaining terms. At a glance, this one follows a ready guide-like topical categorization, but it stands out for its witty pronunciation. Puns. We're talking puns. First section, explaining the heavens. Third entry. Moon sounds like lack. Why? Because when full, it begins to lack. It wanes. Go up to the first entry, and the penchant for pronunciation turns blunt. Sky, tian, is pronounced with the back of the tongue, but some places use the tip of the tongue. And soon enough, another emerging kind of reference will put phonology first, but before then, an aside, because all across this same time, developments in writing are reshaping characters in a way that will impact future lookups. A side note, I'll avoid turning into a side story. The 说文 included script variants in its entries. The surrounding periods witnessed the development of the main styles of scripts used today, from cursive to regular script, with at times dramatic aesthetic and structural differences from each other. Now, these scripts aren't used and abandoned sequentially, rather as side-by-side variants. Now, this might seem like a distraction from dictionaries. This is not about calligraphy, but it is about characters, so of course it's about calligraphy. Much is encapsulated in its basic sayings. 笔墨纸砚, the four treasures, items you need for daily practice. 提笔忘字, lift pen forget character, is for when a character escapes you. 用字八法 reveals calligraphy's role in today's story. See, scripts develop to a point where individual strokes matter. In short, characters are made up of types of strokes, 8 according to this phrase. Every character will now be associated with two qualities: the number of strokes it's composed of, stroke count, and the exact order those strokes should be written in, stroke order. We are now about 1,500 years ago. and it's the era of Middle Chinese. Rhyme time! The Jade Chapters follows the lovely strategy of organizing characters by radicals, but instead of single character reads like or sounds like pronunciations, this long work uses fan qie, 2 characters to pronounce one syllable. The first matches the consonant at the front, the second matches the rhyme or the back of the syllable. And yes, longtime viewers, we're back here again. I showed this off before and even talked about the little program I wrote that does this to English. Here, watch, for example, seen sounds like sea green. Really, it's like saying s plus een. In a syllable-based or morphosyllabic writing system, this is a nice compact notation to package pronunciation. A half-century later, the qie rhymes elevated this little technique to an entire genre. We're thinking just in terms of pronunciation here. So shifts from Old to Middle Chinese have left each character with one of 4 tones. So the work is split into 4 parts, 1 per tone. You'd think that'd make it a 4-volume work, but it's actually 5. The first tone is too popular, too many characters. I'm going to pick a very easy character to show how this works. Tong. First, you have to know its Middle Chinese tone. I'll give it to you. First tone. Then, which character rhymes with our character? It brings us to Volume 1, Group 1, first page after the preface. I told you I was going to pick an easy one. Now down the page to our entry, which tells us this character sounds like t plus ong, and the characters sharing this same pronunciation, including this one. Thus began the rhyme dictionary tradition, which soon overtook older techniques. Now, a bit of a bonus, but who out there has an inkling of a guess of further improvements? Let's try it. Considering the steps we took to look up our character, and the pronunciation info we found when we got there, what's the next step for structuring this info for easier reference? Did you guess tables? Yeah, make a chart for each rhyme. Put columns of initial consonants across the top. Row up each character by tone, and spare the minutiae for historical Chinese linguistics. And with that, you're looking up the same info from rhyme dictionaries, but in Song Dynasty works like the Rhyme Mirror. So in our case, our character rhymed with ong is first tone, and apparently used to start with a voiced tongue-to-gums consonant. Yep, there it is. By the end of the Song Dynasty, rhyme dictionaries and rhyme tables dominate the pronunciation scene. They cater to the needs of poets, classics readers, and exam takers, and become authoritative works in their own right. And they'll go on to impact the way not just pronunciation, but information about individual characters gets presented in character dictionaries from here on. We're on the doorstep of the Near Era, or early modern period. From the Song across the Mongol conquest into the Yuan dynasty, printing is widespread, and bookstores are booming. Amidst that hubbub, the broad record of things and events records and divides up life and times topics in a way that goes way beyond the Ready Guide. In fact, it grew so popular in its own right and pulled that genre so much toward another type of reference that it got me asking, what's the difference between a dictionary and an encyclopedia? It's also about time we faced the peeling apart of 2 types of Chinese references here, those focused on words versus on characters. And the word dictionaries will continue to house all things interpretive, topical, and dialectal. As the Yuan gives way to the long Ming dynasty, the dictionary proper, the dictionaries Chinese readers know today, will standardize around both the character dictionary and the word dictionary types. The Ming will start with, yet another rhyme dictionary, Hongwu Standard Rhymes. But it's about to make a bigger contribution. The old explanatory dictionary was starting to show its age. So many radicals, inconsistent organization. Recall when we looked up Ping, we used the shape of the character to find its section, and then switched to its meaning to find the entry. Enter the character collection. I've been going abstract on my dictionary artwork, at one point even trying for a pixelated look, but I love the way this cover turned out. It convinced me to go inky with all of them. Anyway, this collection organizes characters from that rhyme dictionary, but simplifies the older 540 sections down to 214. On top of that, it leverages strokes to search wholly by visual shape. Watch. Look up ping again. First, the radical has how many strokes? 1, 2, 3. And here, among other sections or radicals with 3 strokes, is our Earth section. Pull out that volume. Use the table at the start to find our character. How? Use our Earth section, then count the number of strokes left over beyond the radical. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 gives us the location of our entry. And when we find it, it's a familiar tune. Sounds like p plus ing and means flat land. Fun chia note, the character used to signal the pronunciation ing, it's ming, bright, and that's the same one used for the dynasty. Anyhow, good. I mentioned bookstores. Guess it's time for a note about the changing settings for these dictionaries. Contrast court or royal libraries earlier in Chinese history with what becomes a new trend, the bibliophile collector, who would house collections in their pavilions, would catalog their books and print copies of them. That's some background I've run into a couple times while reading up on dictionary history. So now imagine yourself among these books at the close of the Ming era when you stumble on this corrected character dictionary. It focuses on flaws in the comprehensive collection that just impressed us with its radicals and its stroke count lookups. And as its title suggests, it sets out to correct those flaws. But I'm not sure I'd even pull that off the shelf if its influence hadn't crossed into the Qing dynasty. A team assigned by the emperor gathers just shy of 50,000 characters from those comprehensive and corrected dictionaries we met to build a new center of lexicographic gravity, the Kangxi dictionary. Dictionary with a capital D here, because see the title? This compound word, 字典, is the term dictionaries today give you if you look up the word dictionary, and it's first coined here for this work. It packs everything we've seen so far into one 42-volume package. Character variants, citations, the short list of 214 radicals, stroke counts, even 2 rhyme tables in the front as a pronunciation guide. Here, travel back to the early 1700s and do a lookup of, won't do the same character, this character. Identify its section. That's this part, dog, and dog has 4 strokes. So once you find the dog section, count the rest of the strokes, which are 16. Flip ahead, and we get to our entry, telling us it's pronounced t plus a, and that the Shuowen said it was like a small dog who lives in water and eats fish. Ta, otter. Now back to the one I jotted down earlier. When the ancient Ready Guide mentioned eating, I had a hunch. The eat part on the bottom must be its section. 9 strokes. After that, 8 more strokes on the top make a character read on its own as fei. So that was my thought, that it has something to do with food and sounds like fei. Let's look it up. It says, sounds like f plus a, homophonous with fei, and means apparently just food. Okay, I really did learn this on the spot. Let me know if I'm missing something. All seems pretty complete, huh? Well, royal demands pushed it to wrap up in 5 years, and haste didn't just make waste, but led to quite a dramatic event in dictionary history. One scholar turned lexicographer got well trained and went on to criticize the Kangxi project. In the process, he forgot to put respect on multiple imperial names by leaving out strokes. His case was brought to the capital, and he lost his head. Lexicography can cost lives. Cross-cultural contacts and colonization will change dictionaries. At this point, it's tempting for me to pull something off the shelf like the Vietnamese Southern Jade Guide to Pronunciation Analysis and Meaning, and then we can wander into the background of how characters had become deeply multilingual, but that's all beyond my scope. Today, think about one point of contact that leaves marks on modern dictionaries. Western colonialism. This book is one I've read of several times, but I don't think I've ever seen before. The Dizionario Portoghese Cinese. It's a long Portuguese to Chinese list, organized in Portuguese alphabetically. So, dar lição, give a lesson, translates to these characters across the page. And sure enough, those mean teach, 教书. In between the Portuguese and the Chinese characters, it's transcribed. Okay, this romanization of Chinese into the Latin alphabet, this is what I wanted to show off here. Later in the 1800s, we get the first dictionary to set Chinese beside English. Its 3 parts give us 3 ways to look up our characters. First, the way you know and love, the 214 radicals. Next, an alphabetic romanization of Chinese, so you can look up your word from A to Z. Third, look up an English word and find the corresponding characters, all familiar enough to modern users. One more English language dictionary of note, in 1892, was influential for decades, both for its coverage of dialects and even Korean, Vietnamese, and Japanese readings of characters, and thanks to its use of what's called Wade-Giles, the romanization of Chinese well into the 1900s. But then past the fall of the Qing dynasty, transliteration systems continue to multiply, with appearances and popularizations of pinyin and zhuyin for Mandarin and, I'm going to try this, yuping for Cantonese. I hope I got that last one right. It must be the first Cantonese word I've ever recorded myself saying. Heading through the later 1900s, both the word and character dictionaries are alive and well. Swimming in the old waters of the Ready Guide is the sea of words, but lookups are now less of a topical guessing game with terms ordered by section heads. Seems we're converging on a strategy, huh? Today's popularity award, though, handily goes to one character dictionary. Watch, flip it open, it'll encapsulate the progress we've made today. Circle back to the start. Look up the character in the title of those old student guides. Pian. Its section header is actually the bamboo on the top, some 6 strokes. That'll tell us the radical number. Find that. And below is a sublist by strokes. Our character's remaining strokes will need to be counted, and those are 9. And sure enough, there it is. Under the section for bamboo, plus 9 strokes, is our character next to a page number. Go to the page. You'll find the character, the transcribed pronunciation, definitions, and more. If we stare at the whole page, though, we can't help but notice that all entries are arranged, well, alphabetically. And yes, you can also look up sequentially by pronunciation, flipping through the dictionary A to Z. I'd like to draw our attention to one other feature we haven't seen yet. Along with radicals, we get a list of 难见字, hard-to-look-up characters. Basically, it helps us to locate ones that are hard to find through the radical and stroke count method you're now trained to follow, just as I was. Whew, feels like we can close the book on character lookups. 对不对? But native speakers out there, I sense you over my shoulder like, that's mostly not how we do it anymore. Indeed, the digital inputs harness and alter the range of methods we met. The whens and hows would draw out our story, but since you have the building blocks, and since I haven't answered our starting question if I ignore these, here are 3 feels from the looker-upper's perspective. The radical plus stroke count method does remain alive and well. Find an app with a list of section headers, pick yours, then scroll to your stroke count, find your character, select it, great. But if you're in the middle of texting or searching, you're likely spelling in one of the phonetic systems, while autocomplete gives back suggested characters as you go, and emoji and other goodies. This strategy for characters predates your mobile phone, I think, by decades. You should know that attached to this method is the sense that many Chinese speakers today don't bother writing anymore, and so it's blamed for character amnesia, or as that saying went, pick up the pen, forget the character. You could also input character anatomy. There are various ways to type out strokes, some requiring not 8 basic stroke types, but just 5 keys for 5 basic stroke types. But my favorite shape inputs let you draw a character stroke by stroke with a pen, mouse, trackpad, or even a finger through the air. In all cases, you give this shape and then pick from the matches the software proposes. As someone who uses multiple of these mediocrely, I had to mention, though I realize it's luring us away from lexicography. With that, I'm ready to wrap up our day. Thanks for pondering the history of character lookups with me. Thanks to patrons for supporting this animation. Stick around and subscribe for one more about Chinese linguistics for now, and then on to more about our world full of languages and cultures.